In the first video of this chapter, we will be talking about how to prepare a file for print. One of the first things that you need to check is what color mode you used. You can find this up here in the tab. If it says CMYK, then that's perfect. But if it says RGB, for example, you would have to go to the File menu, and then Document Color Mode is where you can switch. So CMYK we use for print, RGB we use for screens like mobile devices and desktop computers. If you want to check the colors on your screen for a specific printer or profile, you can find the profile options under the Edit menu. So here you can choose Assign Profile. And these are called ICC profiles, which we use for color management. So if you have a printer installed on your computer that has its own profile, you will be able to choose that from here. And that way, both on screen and in the printed image, you will get more accurate colors. To get an even more seamless workflow when it comes to print, I would recommend to calibrate your screen as well. So color calibration devices are not too expensive, but they are very useful, as they can really get you close to seeing the exact same colors on screen and in print. Another important thing, of course, is to check whether the size of your artboard is set to the actual size you want to print it in. The way you can tell that quickly is by using the artboard tool, with which you will have the artboard selected, and up here in the options bar you will see the width and the height, either in millimeters or whatever your rulers is set to. So if I press Command or Control R, I can right click on the rulers and change the measurement units. So if I need to see the measurements in inches, I will be able to check that, or I can see it again either in centimeters or millimeters. So what if the size is not correct? Let's say you need to set this to 200 millimeters, both the width and the height. Well, what you can do is simply change the values here. So if I type in 200 by 200, and that's the actual print size that I need to use, then I can adjust my illustration. Because we work with vector graphics, everything is scalable, so I can easily do that at any point. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key when I'm scaling. And if at this point I realize that my original shape wasn't even a perfect square, I can use the Direct Selection tool, select those points that I need to move, and just simply drag them further down until it fills the shape. And now if I need to move the central part, I can even use the arrows on the keyboard to nudge them around, or even use alignment to make sure it's centered on the artboard. So Align Panel, set the Align to option to align to artboard, and then center vertically and horizontally as well. So now that we adjusted the artboard and the artwork, we need to also consider how it's going to be trimmed to this size. Because if this artwork, let's say, is printed on an A4 page, but then it needs to be cut out, we need to consider the imperfection of the trimming process. To avoid having any of the original white of the paper showing up on the edges after trimming, we need to use and set up the bleed. So first of all, the best thing to do is to go to the File menu and choose Document Setup, where you will find the bleed options. My recommendation would be to use 3mm bleed, which will be added on all the sides. And then once you click OK, it will be represented with this red outline. Now, because we have been using a shape with a stroke on it, it might be easier to just draw another shape using the same color as its fill color and fill in this extra space, the 3mm edges that we added. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle using the rectangle tool. I fill up this area and I move this shape to the back by using Command or Control Shift square bracket. And I will swap the swatches around, so I press Shift X and remove the stroke by clicking on it here and then set it to none. This way we quickly extended our artwork, and that additional 3mm of orange color will be trimmed off, but it will allow for the imperfection of the trimming process. Because we are using bleed settings for our document, we don't have to worry about the trim marks because they can be added once we are exporting this into a PDF or using the file print option. So when your artboard is ready, you can go to File, Print. Now I'm not going to go through all of these settings, but I just would like to point out the most important ones. Here at the bottom you will find Page Setup, which is going to open up your printer's preferences in case you need to change the page size. Then of course here on the top you can choose what printer you wish to work with. And then further down here we have additional options like the bleed, which you would need to turn on. So you would want to use the trim marks and also the use document bleed settings, which will place the trim marks according to your bleed settings. So these two go hand in hand. And then you have more advanced additional options as well here, which is worth checking if you are doing printing, like the printer profile, which shouldn't be a standard one. It should be whatever your printer supports. And at the end you have a summary where you can check all these features that you are using. Now I'm not going to print this out. Instead, I'm going to show you the other way that you can prepare this artwork for print, and that would be to go to the File menu and choose Save As, where you will be able to choose Adobe PDF. Now this is the most standard format for printing, so I can click Save, and then this will be a fairly similar window but slightly less complicated. And to save time, my recommendation would be to use a standard whenever you are setting up something for print. So probably most commonly accepted standard would be this one, PDF X1A 2001. Once that is selected, then it will change the compatibility and all the rest of the options according to this preset. And the only thing you would have to change is under marks and bleeds, again, trim marks is something that we would like to see. And of course, the use document bleed settings should be on as well. So as long as you do these, your PDF should be in a good shape. So I'm just going to click on Save PDF and then click OK again. And here's the PDF. This is how it looks. We have the trim marks on the corners, 3 millimeters in from the edges. And this file now can be sent to print. And one last suggestion is that if you are doing a professional print, especially in large quantities, always double check and ask your printer whether everything is fine that you provided. Never feel intimidated, rather try to collaborate. As a graphic designer, you should have some basic understanding of how to prepare something for print, but a printer is mainly responsible to double check whether the file that they were provided is correctly set up or not. So communication is key between the designer and the printer. And these were the key techniques and features that I wanted to talk about in this video. In the next one, we will be looking at ways to prepare your files to be used on the web.